What does freedom mean to over 30 million South Africans who still languish in abject poverty? To what extent do poverty levels impact access to food? And why are 10 million tons of food going to waste annually while millions of people go to bed hungry? What is the best weapon to fight hunger and poverty? What time is it? It's question time. Khotsong and welcome to the show. The targets of the country's National Development Plan are back under the spotlight. This after Statistician General Dr. Pali Lehohla released the Poverty Trends in South Africa report yesterday. To eliminate poverty and reduce inequality, the NDP envisages an inclusive and fast-growing economy that should be able to serve the needs of all citizens by 2030. Government's new growth plan aims to create 5 million new jobs by 2020. Stats SA's figures for 2006 to 2015 indicate that more than 30 million South Africans are victims of poverty. It mostly affects Black Africans and Coloureds, as well as children and females in rural areas, with 1 in 2 South Africans living below the poverty line. Oxfam says the best solution to alleviate poverty is access to education. For its part, though, the WWF SA says 10 million tons of food goes to waste every year. This as millions of people experience food scarcity, with many of them going to bed on empty stomachs. We are live. If you can join us, numbers to dial 089-1104-210, our international number +2789 1104-210, our Twitter handle at QuestionTime24. My guest today, Thembinkosi Dlamini, is the head of economic justice at Oxfam South Africa, and we're expecting to be joined by Tatiana von Bormann, who's a senior manager of the policy and futures unit at WWF South Africa, but that is if Skype permits. But for now, Malandel.
Good afternoon, Paul.
You're good.
I'm all right.
You don't agree with what this Stats SA is saying. You argue that the poverty trends or poverty amongst the main issues is caused by lack of access to land.
Yes, Paul. One of the things that we highlight in our statement as Oxfam is that access to capital, not only land, is one of the key instruments that people use to climb out of the poverty situation. It is not only land, it's also other factors such as access to adequate food, finance if you want to play in the business, a job, and many others. So we argue that whilst the Statistician General showed us a picture of what the situation is in South Africa, where 55.5% of the people live in absolute poverty, we say in a way that poverty is created by the wrong policy choices of the government that has been in place in the past 23 years.
So, you are saying South Africans are hungry today because of this ANC government?
Well, if you imagine that the government is the people who are responsible for issuing out of mining licenses all over South Africa, and we do know that mining comes with forced removals of people from their land, which is usually productive in subsistence agriculture, producing food, and that the same mining causes some form of pollution of the water sources, the water courses, and that mining also demands a lot of water in terms of the mining of coal in particular, and that the government continues to invest in fossil fuel in terms of its energy mix, which means we're going to need more of the water, more of the coal, more of the land towards producing energy that we use in our households. It's the poor people who are moved off their land that are paying the cost of our electricity. And most of these people do not have access to electricity themselves.
But Is your focus not perhaps skewed towards rural communities in the sense that those are the only people really whom I see surviving out of the land they live on?
Yes, there is high levels of urban poverty, and that urban poverty is on the rise as well.
Yes.
Partially is because of the forced rural-urban migration, where people in the rural areas with no options now have to migrate to the urban centers looking for job opportunities. But we do know that the job opportunities are becoming more and more scarce. Even those people that are in jobs, they are in precarious jobs, which means the jobs that are there, they can hardly give them enough money to support their families in the urban center as well as the families back at home. So there is urban poverty and there is poverty jobs that are prevalent in South Africa, and the trend is that it is growing. And the
2003
urban centers tend to be underserved in terms of housing, access to basic amenities such as clean water, sanitation, and many other issues. Then the costs that they have to bear every day just to keep the lights on in the urban center, just to make sure that they can travel to go to the firm where they are going to look for jobs. The transport costs are high, the food costs are high. So it's a toxic mix that just continues to unravel in our watch, and it seems the government, as it were, doesn't have an idea how to come out of this one. We have seen Vision 2030.
Yes,
it's a good vision. Yes, but we haven't seen concrete steps that the government is taking and putting in place to try to move towards that vision. They are talking about creating millions of jobs.
Or job opportunities.
Yes, but the truth of the matter is that we are shedding jobs. We are not creating jobs.
You also argue education, well, which is quite obvious, in that in an educated nation, obviously, there would be better opportunities, correct?
Yeah, that's very correct. But it has to be education that is being accessed by the majority of the people. But also education which is of a good quality and responds to the needs of the society of today, the information age. So it is very important that when we talk about education, we are clear about the kind of education that we are looking at that will respond to the challenges of the day.
Dougie, you're in the Val. Welcome. Dougie?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Doesn't sound like they put me through.
They have, Dougie, you are through.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Dougie, I can hear you very well.
Okay, good. Then I can talk.
Yes.
Okay, now, what I want to say, I don't know about this group of people, this Oxfam. I don't even know where they got their names from. But our biggest problem is having our borders open to all the other nations. That's where our problems are coming from. You cannot allow so many Nigerians, so many Zimbabweans, so many Somalians, so many hara and more and more and more. The country cannot get any richer from the people that are already in South Africa. You need to bring your population down and not bring more people into the country.
You're being xenophobic now, Dougie.
That's where your biggest problem is laying.
You are being xenophobic, Dougie.
This guy, to me, I don't know where he's coming from. I don't understand him. I really don't even know what his company stands for. But I think he talks. Anyway, yeah, I don't want to say. But anyway, my friend, that's what I've got to say.
Dougie.
Yes.
Are you not being xenophobic now by saying the borders must be closed to other nationals?
No, I'm not. I am saying our country can only afford a certain amount of population.
Okay.
Our whole country, South Africa. We can't carry on allowing other people from other parts of Africa to come into our country when we can't afford to look after our own people? We need to start looking after our own home. I was listening to Cyril Ramaphosa today. I wish I was there because I would have said to him, you know, the first thing you do, you don't worry about Sierra Leone. You worry about South Africa. The 8 million that they send into Sierra Leone, how much can't that go to our people here?
Okay.
You follow what I'm saying?
I hear you, Dougie. So
and that's the thing.
Okay.
Charity starts at home. It doesn't start anywhere else. It starts at home.
So
you've got to get your house right first. And once your house is right and your house is prosperous, you can then start moving your resources or whatever you've got too much of, you can start giving.
Okay, Dougie, thank you very much. So in brief, you're saying my guest is talking rubbish. Oh, Dougie is gone, but yeah. Well, Dougie's not so impressed. He doesn't know where Oxfam comes from, where you're going, what you stand for, and all that. But I guess that's besides the point. How much of a factor are foreign nationals, or how much of a problem, if one may put it that way, are foreign nationals in terms of this poverty levels? Are we hungrier because we have we have allowed other people into our country?
Yes, I think Dougie is expressing the sentiment as it prevails out there. But the truth of the matter is that foreigners are a soft target. It's easy to shift the blame and start looking at the foreigners as the people who are the cause of our problems, when that is not the case. I mean, there is migration into South Africa from other African countries. There is migration into South Africa from across the oceans overseas. There is also internal migration in South Africa, where people from the poorer regions of South Africa are migrating to the metropolitans, the urban centers. So some of the problems that we see coming is a mix of all of these forms of migration. And I wouldn't say foreigners, as it were, are the people who are bringing in the problems. The foreigners, they come with innovation from their countries, and the foreigners are hiring some locals in their businesses, as it were. Yeah.
Let's go to Swellendam. Nathan, welcome.
Hi, Umpo, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks for the call.
It's a pleasure, Umpo.
Yes.
The poverty, firstly, I want to put that right in front of Jacob Zuma and the ANC's door.
Okay.
Because the ministers is stealing all over and nothing has been done to them. They can just steal and go on because it's now their time to steal. And then another thing, Umpo, we talk about the foreigners that's coming into our South Africa. If they got war or whatsoever in their land, they are not here to come and say they want some covering up here in South Africa. What they actually do here, you must come to the rural areas. Then you will actually, it's an eye-opener, and you will actually see what is the foreigners doing in our towns in the rural area. They're putting up smokeable houses. They're putting up shops. They've got nothing to do with the municipality regulations. They do whatever they want to do. They hit our people. They're smuggling drugs. There you see Mugabe's wife. She just get away. But if you are a South African, you will be locked up immediately. But I want to say to the ANC, our South Africans and our Coloureds have no right in our own land anymore. Thank you, Mpo.
Thank you very much, Nathan, there. Talking poverty here. I don't know how Grace Mugabe came through there, but yeah, she did. We'll be right back.
takes patience and the finest ingredients to craft a milk stout of superior quality that is made to be savored by the most refined palate. Castle Milk Stout. Savor your richness.
If you ask this pretentious mixologist what is needed to make the ultimate cocktail, she'd say, a thorough knowledge of science. Ooh, right in the face. Yes. If you asked us, we'd say it's less about science and more about, well, chemistry. Tops at Spa. Good spirits, good advice, no rocket science.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. Our guest today, Thembinkosi Dlamini, is the head of economic justice at Oxfam South Africa. And now joining us on Skype, Tatiana von Bormann. She's the senior manager of the policy and futures unit at WWF South Africa. Let me welcome you as well, Tatiana. We're just trying to critique the report by the Statistician General looking at causes of poverty. From your angle as the WWF, what have you identified as the main causes of poverty?
Oh, thanks, Paul. There's obviously, I'm sure, as you've been discussing, a multiplicity of causes. I mean, my work in the food sector has both the recognition that commodity prices, global commodity prices are declining, so sources of income into South Africa are less than they were, and yet food prices, energy prices are going up. So people who already are earning little or nothing are having to face the challenge of not being able to afford food. So there's, that maybe this is not a cause of poverty, but it's certainly a very real symptom of the poverty in South Africa, is that we have growing numbers of South Africans going hungry. The research that was released earlier this year pointed to more than 1 in 5 children under the age of 5, so 27% of children under the age of 5 suffering from stunting. That's just not getting enough food, and that's something you'll never be able to cure.
So let's talk about the solutions. What should happen? Oxfam suggests a whole lot of things, but what is your suggestion as WWF?
So WWF, as an environmental organization, takes the position that the first starting point for environmental justice is social justice. So the people who really suffer the worst from the implications of our poor environment, whether that's insufficient water, polluted water, or the opposite, flooding, degraded soils, so the implications in the rural environments, the implications in the cities, in the really hostile environments of the informal settlements. These are all things that need to be addressed in a multiplicity of ways. Again, this is not, there's no one solution. We are looking at how do you work with communities to ensure that they are able to be adaptive and resilient in the face of our changing climate and our really desperate poverty in this country. It's not an easy question to answer unless you look at it sort of from specific points of intervention in the larger system.
Paul, you're in Durban. Welcome. Paul?
About the poverty, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like these guys, they are just talking about the foreign minister. But me, I'm the one of the foreign minister. I came from Zimbabwe.
Okay.
So the other thing I need to say is, when you speak about the poverty, the first thing you need to understand is you need to educate yourself first. that's the tool for you to fight against the poverty. Then the other thing is, you know, here in South Africa, in every company you go, they will say it's just preference for South Africans before we give a job to a foreign nation. So when they say so, the other time you cannot find even a South African is looking for a job. When you get the job now, then they start to fight. Then they say, produce your qualifications. The people don't have qualifications. So for you to fight against poverty, you need to educate yourself. That's what I would say.
Paul, thank you very much there. I think education is coming back once again.
Right. Yeah, education is the key. I mean, if we can sort out our education system, make sure that there is adequate funding for all universities, not only the universities in Johannesburg and Cape Town, Pretoria, but your University of Venda, your universities of KZN. Pali Lehohla also mentioned the issue of unemployable graduates coming out of our systems. That is a very worrying factor because it would seem that we have good policies, we have institutions, we invest a lot of money on education, but we don't care about the quality of the product itself.
Tatiana, women and children seem to be at the lowest of on this graph. They are getting the rawest of the deals.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And I think you can see that in both the urban and the rural environments. I mean, many of our smallholder farmers are women. And the issue there is these are women who often don't have rights to the land they farm. So there's very little ability for them to leverage any finance, for them to have any security in which to ensure that they're able to build their farming operations. So yes, in the rural environments and in the urban environments. And we're seeing it from the food perspective that often those who are going hungry are the women and children. So I absolutely agree that education is key. I think we could. There are ways of being a more caring society that we're not taking advantage of. So I know that one of the reasons that you asked to speak to WWF is our new report that shows that a third of food is wasted in South Africa. So you have millions going hungry, 11, 12 million people who don't know where their next meal will come from, and yet we're wasting a third of all food. So 10 million tons of food will never be consumed. And I think we need much better ways of distributing that food so that those who are most desperately in need don't go hungry. There's enough food, we're just not able to ensure that everybody gets access to it. And that can be rectified. And that can be rectified quite simply by actors throughout the value chain. So by government action, by business action, and even by each one of us thinking differently about our food and how we consume it and how we share it.
Okay. Gugu, I think we can squeeze you very briefly there. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mpho. You're speaking from Gugu in Kagiso.
Okay.
Mpho, I'm fuming.
Mpho,
our government takes 8 million to Sierra Leone. Then they preach poverty in our country.
Okay.
I am a working woman.
Yes.
I owe South 120,000. They take my 5,000 every month to cover for that. Mpho, is that fair? Then you talk poverty.
Well, Gugu, I don't think it is fair, but I'm not so sure if we can do much here. And unfortunately, we've also run out of time. Let me appreciate your time as well, and Tatiana, for joining us on Skype there. I will have to invite you again so that we can talk about some of these policies of yours, which I think we can challenge here and there.
Thanks for the invite, Mpho. We appreciate it.
All righty. And that was question time for today. A big thank you to my guests and to you for watching the show. From me and the entire crew, you have yourself a wonderful time. Ibe Khotso.